He's been made to feel ashamed of it. And, yeah.
Well, is this something else that concerns you? Because, like, aside from, the mass Islamization and the risk of terror attacks, are you also concerned about the fact that with so many people migrating, it will eventually replace the population? I read an article, I think it was from The Independent, I'll throw it up here, but they said Muslims will be the majority in Europe. So this will replace the culture. Are you afraid of losing your culture?
I think that terrorism is the least part of the problem. It helps to identify the extremism, violent section of it. But yeah, the cultural change, the demographic change, when you talk about the Great Replacement, if you look at, again, I'll bring you back to Luton, again, my hometown. And I'll bring you back to not my statistics, these aren't Tommy Robinson statistics, these are government statistics. By 2030, then the Pakistani and Bangladeshi community of that town will increase by 70 to 77%. Yeah, that's an increase in their community. Now, the white community and the black community that are non-Muslim are going to be by 1 to 1.3%. So the problems we already face, they are going to just explode. Yeah. Now that is and forget about terrorism. Take terrorism out of that equation. That is still terrible for our town. Yeah. Still, and that is should be the biggest fear. And the biggest weapon they use is that we're only 5%, we're only 6%, we're only small numbers. They act like you're mad for saying things like this. But they know how quickly it can change. When you're having, I think in England, 5.6 children, Muslims. In France, 7.1, I believe, on average. Multiple wives. Yeah. That can, like this,
change very quickly.
Yeah, and that's before you allow Angela Merkel to let 1 million young fighting-age men into
right. And then there's the question of tolerance. Do you believe that the Muslims, when they do become the majority, will be as tolerant of the natives as the natives are of them now? And this is, I think, a very important question to ask, that we need to ask.
Through tolerance, we will become refugees. Through tolerance, we ourselves will become refugees. Just ask people in India, the same situation. Many of them have had to leave due to tolerance to Islam. It sounds like such a stupid question because we know. Most people won't. Do you think they'll show us the same rights when they become a majority? Just look in the areas they have become a majority. Look in Luton, look in Bradford, look in Birmingham. Look what it's like for non-Muslims living in those communities. Look at the persecution they face, look at the harassment they face, look at the rapes and the violence they face. We are sleepwalking into an oblivion.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also have to consider the things we'll be subjected to under their rule, like child marriage, for example, which you've mentioned is going on in the UK, despite it being illegal, obviously, but it's still going on.
Between 1,000 and 8,000 a year, they believe, are married as children in mosques across the UK. And that's just child marriage between Muslims.